And this is closer to the official Autodesk setup. So I want to make sure I go ahead and set up my preferred angle. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before with some changes. Never mind, I made myself get a little with that one. So I'm going to create my IK. It's going to go down to my forearm joint as before. I just want to make sure it's not. And it's moving forward, which I don't like that per se. And even after I set my preferred angle, it's still doing something a little bit weird, which is going to make this slightly difficult. So I may have to do something a little bit different, but let's see if I can just finesse it. And the problem is, it just does not like that, the lack of a bend. Even though I set my preferred angle, it just doesn't like it. And this is kind of gerrymandering it. Is I can set a bend in here and then do it after my character is bowed, but that is not the way you want to do it. So I might have to use another joint chain and drive that one to drive this one, but I wouldn't have to necessarily do a completely different joint chain. So that's what I'm going to do, because if you want to fix it, it's closer to what you should be doing compared to something else, and that is important. And I have all of these in here. Where's my polygons? Alright. So what I want to do is we're going to snap the point. And oops, can't snap the point. And I'm going to have to do this. Snap the point. And I need to get these all in the same kind of line. So I'm going to do that right now. couple more steps than what I thought, because I have to do a break. I mean, a kind of a fix, just because of what's going on. And I just want to get these all in a straight line. That's what I want to do right now. There we go. I'm going to move this up. And what I want to do is get this so that I have a nice little angle. And granted, I understand this is not optimal. I am not saying that it is. What I am saying is it might be a way for me to make my life just maybe a little bit easier. And I'm going to stretch this joint to about right there. And I'm going to rotate them so they're kind of where it should be. Ideally, I'll be able to run everything off of this one joint chain, but because I can't, I'm going to have to do a hybrid of what I initially wanted to show you guys, because it's flipping out. So a couple things I need to do: modify freeze transformations, scale, rotate, need to be frozen for everything. And we have that, and we're just going to name this, you know, RT IK FK shoulder joint, and I'm just going to rename them. Just going to name them because that's going to be important. Elbow, one, that's two, three, forearm, wrist. Let's check out orients. And they're all going the right way. What I'm going to do is group this, edit, duplicate special, and it should be -X. Move that over. Then we're going to select this, modify, search, and replace names, and obviously I'm looking for RT underscore, and I'm replacing it with LT underscore. Then we want to get it out of that joint chain, and then we want to check our orients. And the only thing that needs to change is that really these can stay the same, because well, actually I do, because I got to have an FK control on this as well too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and our Y's need to go down. So we're going to go to skeleton, orient joints, and really secondary axis is going to be Y negative. And there we go. my wrist, I can go ahead, you know what, I might as well just go ahead and make that as well, because it's going to drive everything else, and we're just going to have it, you'll see. Alright, so these are our two joints, two joint chains, and let's go ahead and get this set up. Right now, I'm going to hide my extraneous joints, and we're going to go ahead and set up our IK for this one. So I'm going to go from here to my forearm, and I had the wrong thing selected. So this joint to here, that goes to the forearm, and the same thing that we did before. We're going to go to our Windows hierarchy. Hierarchy is not what we want. We need connections, so I need to go back. And we want the effector. And we want to move the insert point of the effector. There we go. And then we're going to move this to our wrist. The reason why this is important is because now I can still rotate my forearm joint, which is what I want. Once again, let's do it on this side. We're going to go to our forearm joint, and I need to check something. Something is amiss. For some reason it's doing that. I might just fix it with my twist. I wasn't expecting that, but we can deal with it. And now what we're going to do, and we're going to grab our input-output connections, effector, and we want our insert point of the effector, which will move our control to our wrist. And that's what we want. Now that we have this, the cool thing is we have access to we can switch the IK from the IK to FK with the IK solver. So what we're going to do is, let's go ahead and create a IK control. Well, let's just create because I don't have to necessarily do everything to get you to point A to point B. But what I want to do is we need to create something on here that will allow us to switch our control. So what we're going to do is, I have one I want to use. Might as well use this one. Scale this down. Unforeseen problems. Alright, let's hide the geo. Let me get my joints back. I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to stamp it to this one. Even though this is going to control this, it's just for looks. And we're going to duplicate it again. And this will be my shoulder. Alright, so now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and just name it RT shoulder con. This is RT wrist con, and then this is RT, I'm sorry, this is elbow. And this is RT wrist con. Let's freeze them. And this is what we're going to do. So on this one, just to start out, let's just create, modify, add an attribute. Switch, displayable. And minimum, -10, max 10. Now, what we're going to do is this. Our IK controller, and we shouldn't move it afterwards, but it's controlling this one. This joint is going to drive this one. But to get started, let's go ahead and set up our IK, and then we'll set up our constraints. So this is going to be parent constraint to my wrist control. And we want to maintain offset. And wherever this goes, everything else should follow. Also, this is going to, our wrist joint is going to be orient constrained to this control as well too. Constrain, orient, and maintain offset. There we go. So that I can move it, I can rotate it, we can do whatever we want to it. Forearm control setup is still going to be the same, but we're going to save that for last. And what we're going to do is we're going to PSA these other two controls to this one. And we're going to PSA this to this. And really, I probably got too many joints in here for this setup, but never mind. And we're going to PSA this one to this one. Or, if I wanted to, I could just do a straight up orient constraint as well. And same thing with this one. The drawback is now, even though these are orient constrained to this, the problem is, well, it's not a problem. The way this works is my rotations are being controlled by the IK solver, this thing here. Now, if I was to switch this, turn off the blend, I'm now able to rotate it. You guys see that? Now, our switch involves us controlling this blend here. So what we're going to do, and I probably should just change that value to 1 to 10, but this is what we're going to do. So we're going to select our IK mesh, sorry, not mesh, key, set driven key, set, IK handle is our controller, we want the blend, our controller, here's our driver, and let's say by default it's at 0, and we'll set our IK blend to 0. Oops, there we go. Key it. And then here we'll set our wrist control to 10, and then this we'll set it to 1. Key. So here and we're able to blend between the two of sorts. Now, how does this affect this joint here? Well, we're going to do a orient constraint between these two joints. So we're going to select this, constrain, orient, and do need maintain offset. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, even though at this point the way the setup is working, we're not going to get that nice bend. And of course the forearm joint. I don't need to worry about my wrist because it's not really doing anything, so I'm not worried about it. So at this point, it moves. We do have like a little bit kind of a translation issue here, and that's just because of the distance, this two joints, because I could not do this the way I wanted to. I had to make some adjustments on the fly. It's kind of just what it is. Now if I wanted to, I could play around with, instead of doing a orient constraint, I could play around with just doing a straight up parent constraint to see what that looks like, so it stays with my wrist control. Not the proper thing you want to do, but I'm making an adjustment on the fly because I couldn't do what I wanted to start off with. I probably should have just demoed this with just the arm by itself so that you can see it, instead of me having to make adjustments for things that are breaking, which happens. But I could play around with this, and then it should move with it regardless. And then we can go from there. But I'm not a big fan of that. So maybe we'll hold off on that orient constraint. Really? There we go. Okay. A little bit wonky. So once we have this, we have these, Yeah, I have some weird weight issues going on here. And then with this one, then the rest of what I have to do is what we've already done before. So group, edit, modify, again, center pivot. Same thing with this. And then this one, modify, center pivot. I'm going to take this and kind of move this all the way back to this one. And then this is going to constrain this group. Well, this object is going to constrain our wrist group. And this is going to constrain our elbow group. So that whenever we move it, rotate it, stays together. And then the only other difference would be once we're using the actual switch. That was a parent constraint. Now that we have those, now the one thing we need to do that I'm going to have to do is if this is, at 10 where it's controlled by my IK, because of the parent constraint, I'm going to have to control those constraints. And what I need to do is probably just on this one, control that particular constraint. Well, actually just on the group. So let's go here, select the group, Windows, key, set driven key, set, we're there, and then it's the wrist control, low driver, switch. So if we're at 0, if I look at my IK blend, it's at 0, so we're FK at this point. And we're going to key it. I'm just going to test it just to be on the safe side. And then here, if this is 10, our constraint goes to 0. So that it's no longer controlled by these. It works independently. It won't move with anything else. Now, outside of that, then I can turn these controls on and off, and these are the only two I would need to turn on and off, and I can just control their visibility. So when they're 10, they're on. When they're not, they're off. And then that would be the last thing I would do to finish up the setup. So a little bit more complicated than what I wanted to do, but it gives you a slight alternative to what I showed you. The other one I showed you is kind of the fact of standard. This one is a hybrid of those two. I could go back next class and show you what it looks like with a single joint chain instead of two joint chains, one driving the other, which is not what I wanted. But the only reason why I changed that is because when I added in my IK, the arm flipped, and it did it in such a way that I didn't think it was going to be able to be fixed with just twisting it. Does everybody understand that?